Thanks very much for that, John. We're a little bit behind time, and one of the issues with that is that the Brisbane Club won't be when it comes to drinks. So you've got half an hour after this. So John's happy to take questions, but bearing in mind the proclivities of your fellows, can you keep it brief so we can get through the period in a little bit shorter time than we might have allowed? I might ask the first question because that gives you a bit of a chance to think about what you might ask. And my question, John, is the infrastructure you've built is one where it's very easy to see how you can fund it and make a dollar and how it can be paid for. What other infrastructure opportunities are there out there where it's that easy to align the funding and the outcome?
Well, I think one of the issues we have, in the world at the moment is people look for too short a investment horizon, and that's why I believe that we need, substantial private wealth to help fund some of these projects. But there's two ways to look at this. There's one is the funding. The other thing is actually having the vision and the guts to get on and do it. And if you look at that, and the project that I've actually got a bit of interest in is the National Trunk Rail from Melbourne to the Brisbane Port. If you look at that project just makes a whole heap of sense. And I'm told that it's very easily fundable. There's trillions of dollars out there. People are looking for a home for. Interest rates in the bank are next to nothing. And it's just really having those people that have the commitment, that can sell the dream and then actually execute it, that can make these things happen. Ours is only a small-scale project. It's very big for Wagner's, but it's a small-scale project in some of those real nation-building things. But I've just read the book of Thies, Building a Nation, and I don't know if anyone else has read that book, but I could strongly recommend it and see how that family and some of the projects that they built through that period, 50, 80, 85 years or something, and what they achieved, and they're from Toowoomba, which is a good start, but how they went through it, some of their highs and lows, I think we can all learn a lesson from that.
Yeah, I thought you might have had a question, Everald.
Everald Compton, John.
I know exactly who you are, Everald. Yeah.
An old Toowoomba boy who went to school in Toowoomba, and every school in Toowoomba seemed to be dominated by Wagner when I was there. Right. And that's a good thing. Should I say that I've long believed that the way dedicated freighters by air should come into Australia is to one destination and then be distributed by great technical logistics to the whole of Australia. And in the time I was working on the Inland Railway, I saw an attempt for that to happen in parts, and politics killed it. But there was no local bloke like you who put his money on the block, and the same thing happened in Rockhampton. Now your family have done what I've only seen a handful of families do in my lifetime, and it's extraordinary. I congratulate you, but I believe that all the dedicated freighters in Australia can come into Toowoomba, and then local freighters take it all over Australia. And I believe we've all got to get behind you and make sure that happens, because I can't see a single reason why freight that's needed for the whole of Australia should go into a capital city. And so if we can all help you make that happen, I think it'll be great for Australia.
Well, thanks, Everald. Might actually give you a job, mate, I think. The situation is it's very interesting when we start this project, and it's good when you don't know anything about something when you start it, because you don't have any preconceived misconceptions. And I went to these, I used to go to these airport conferences and say to people, we're going to try and get some freighters in. They said, well, that won't happen. Just won't happen. All the freighters go into Sydney and Melbourne. That's it. Freighters don't come into Brisbane, which I can't appreciate, but they don't. And then you look at Sydney and Melbourne, and particularly Sydney that's got a curfew, it's totally constrained, and you've got these big carriers like Cathay Pacific, Singapore Airlines, Etihad, the list goes on. that have a certain amount of slots into capital cities around Australia. I think Cathay is limited to 65 slots. So what they can do is take their freight out of a capital city and put it into a regional centre because they've now got infrastructure. We can take a fully loaded 747-800 with 137 tonnes outbound non-stop to Hong Kong. So what that means now is they're starting to sort of say, okay, we can put a 777 into Sydney, which we make a hell of a lot more money out of than a freighter, and we can bring our freighters into and out of Toowoomba. They charge about $6.40 a kilo. That's the going rate for freight into Australia from most of the places around the world. We can rail it or truck it to Sydney from Toowoomba for about $4.6 cents a kilo. It's a huge difference, so 6.4 cents it might be. But it's nothing, in the overall scheme of things. I went to Sydney Airport last Friday night to watch a jumbo load of live cattle being exported out of there. And it was just a dog's breakfast, You've got B-doubles, you've got cow manure, you've got all that stuff and cowboys and all the other stuff right in the guts of Sydney Airport, trying to load these crates to go. This particular one was dairy cattle going to Malaysia. And that should be done in a regional centre. It's just the place to be. So we're very bullish about where we will be in the future as far as freight and passengers go, for that matter.
Stephen Bowers.
Stephen Bowers, my name.
Stand up. Smile at the camera.
John, I had the pleasure of 3 tours, personal tours, and it's one of the most amazing things. I was a site surveyor on the Wagner Dam. And I got the same sense of amazing achievement, having hundreds of people working together to change a landform to create something that was of historic value. John, the thing that you really haven't shared, I think, is the innovation that you actually introduced into this airline business. And you recounted to me how you went to these same conferences and you started to build a 747 capable airport, and I think they sort of tittered away, or some dropped on the floor and laughed. And after you started to do it, you got all the phone calls. But I think the Wagner story is this bold innovation, and through your products that you produce, and just your approach to building an airport, you reinvented so many things. Can you tell us about some of that?
Okay, well, just quickly, thanks, Stephen. The history is you go to these airport conferences and you can make a career out of going to them. And when I first started going to them, I was getting to know the industry and who are you, mate? And I'm John Wagner. Where are you from? Toowoomba. And I'm building the new Toowoomba Airport. And, oh, yeah, how long's your runway? It's 2,870 metres and 45 metres wide. And okay, anyway, it's best of luck with it and nice knowing you, and walked off. So that happened time after time after time. And I thought, okay, just remember your name, mate, in case you turn up again, which they all did, the whole lot of them. Architects, pavement engineers. And what we learned from that is that there was just so much scepticism as to whether you could actually build a new airport. And people would say, well, why would you build a new airport? Why would you do that? Why would you spend that sort of money? So what we did, we set about doing something differently, and we engaged some Tier 2 contractors rather than Tier 1 engineering people who we could work with, that charged the right sort of money. And we set about building, obviously, in our view, the quickest airport that's been built in this country, but also the greenest. So in our airport, we saved 6,600 tonnes of carbon. 6,600 tonnes of carbon. Greenest airport that's ever been built in the world, because we build it with concrete without cement, which is a Wagner proprietary product called Earth Friendly Concrete. So there was that. It was the way we placed the rock. We placed the gravel with pavers. We placed the concrete with pavers. We were placing 1,000 cubic metres of concrete a day, every day, with very little labour. And as a result of that, we've got a very low cost investment. Had it gone down the typical path of placing concrete 4 metres by 4 metres, half a metre thick. Ours was half a metre thick, but it was done in great long runs very quickly. The thing would have cost, $500, $600, $700 million. We wouldn't have been able to afford to do it. And secondly, I would have been an old man before we got a return on our investment. So I said in my talk, it's about getting the right projects at the right cost base, and that's what we've got to do. And we were fortunate because we didn't have profit on profit. We didn't even go to tender. We just built it ourselves. So we're quite unique. Yep.
Again, yes, got some Chinese guests here tonight, and I thought
They want an airport built, do they?
but I'm just wondering your thoughts on potential opportunities for Toowoomba and Australia and Queensland for Chinese investments, trade.
Okay, we're welcome for a start to Brisbane and to Australia. It's lovely to have you here. I'm extremely bullish about the whole Chinese food production market. We're dealing with a number of the major companies in China at the moment who, and I guess the difference between us and other airports is we have to create this business. We just can't be the airport guy and let other people do it. So we've had to get in and create it. I've had maybe a dozen trips to China in the last 12 months to create those relationships and those links. And we've been told very clearly by the Chinese guys, food security is a major issue, dairy is a major issue, and we want to be able to order, 6 T-bones and 2 roasts and 10 sausages on our mobile phone and be able to track it all the way from the abattoir all the way through to their door. And that's what we're setting about doing. We're going to revolutionise the whole portion-packed way meat is done and delivered to your country. And we see, with the change in attitude towards free trade agreements and the like, that we're very well placed, given that we've got the biggest concentration of feedlot cattle in the country within an hour of our airport. We've got 5 Chinese certified abattoirs within an hour of our airport, and we believe the time is right to be able to capitalise on that market and send our ag product value added to not only China but to the other Asian countries.
Yes. Philip Fitzgerald. John, my question's not so serious, but being a corporate auditor, I really appreciate and admire your humility, and I lived in Toowoomba for 15 years and we still have connections there. But my question to you is, my son is studying engineering. He will eventually pass.
He must have a more tolerable dean than the one that I had, mate.
We've had discussions at work, so I'm pretty sure he will eventually pass. But last Christmas he did 4 weeks on the Moreton Bay Rail project as part of his work experience, and he's just come back from the UK where he did a week on the HS2 program with his uncle Dave Higgins, who's chairman of that. And what I want to know is, can I send him to Toowoomba to spend some time with you?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we do take in a number of work trainees through our business, try and get some commerciality into them and knock them into shape. But it's a good occupation, so you should encourage him to keep at it, eh?
So are there any other job applications? Actually, my son graduated in engineering. And he put a science degree on it as well. I hope he goes to design at some stage, Steve.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Really inspirational what you said. And I share one thing in common with you before you started. I don't really know like our Jones. Having said that, my question to you is, are there any structural or other impediments in terms of government that stood in the way of getting the airport going or continuing its operation? You said that even aside the fact that the public servants initially were sceptical, but they still worked together to make sure it happened in 18 months. were there any political obstacles or any other obstacles that you could share with us that perhaps that should be removed to make these infrastructure projects happen?
No, I have to say we had a very good run. We put our application into the Toowoomba Regional Council on the 28th of June 2012, and we had approval on the 16th of December that year. So that's 5.5 months. We were lucky. We picked our timing with that application. We copped a bit of flack over it from some of the neighbours, of one of which is Jones's mate. But I don't want to dwell on the negatives with him. He's only one person. He's entitled to his say, even though he doesn't let the truth get in the way of a good story. But Campbell Newman came up and he said, "You can't build this without an EIS." And I said, "Well, we can, Campbell. You obviously don't know the town planning laws in Queensland." He said, "No, you can't." And I took him out to the site and I said, "We've already started, so you work it out for yourself." And he called me back the next day, to his credit, and he said, "No, you're right, go for it." The state, the Federal Department of Infrastructure, Planning and Infrastructure, wrote to Sini and asked him to call in the application and take it off the Toowoomba Regional Council after it was approved, which I thought was just very, very poor form. And I didn't politicise it. We went through that process with them, and Sini, to his credit, said, "No, we don't want to touch this. It's a good project." And at no stage did we ask any government at any level for any money, but just let us get on and build it in accordance with the law. We don't want any favours. We don't want any shortcuts. Probably the biggest issue I had was CASA. The head guy from CASA went away for 10 months. 10 months holiday. And he went over to Vietnam, one of those places to help the poor people and work in an orphanage, which was fantastic of him. Came back 3 weeks before we were due to open. He called me and said, "I've just referred this to the Federal Department of Environment under the EPBC Act." Okay. So I went to Canberra and sat down with him. I said, "I want a meeting with you and all the environmental people." And they started going about the barrier reef. They started to go on about snails and fish and birds. I said, "They're all gone. We've knocked down everything on the property. There's nothing left. So you make up your own decision." And by the way, it's nowhere near the barrier reef. So get your atlas out. And anyway, they got their act together, but it was probably the closest shave that we had to being, because Qantas was selling tickets by this stage of the game. We'd sold 5,000 or 6,000 tickets on the first number of flights. But no, it was good. It was good, but it was disappointing that we didn't get Abbott's support for it, because it was a nation-building project. But he chose to run the political side, and he can rest with his decision. But no, it was good. It was a good experience.
I think Alan Jones' audience figures up here speak for themselves. Well below Steve Austin, the ABC. We've got time for one more question, I think. So, not playing favourites, but right.
No. All I got from that story, John, is that the only way you can get anything done and get past the bureaucracy is you send the head of the department away to Vietnam for a holiday for 10 months, and you do it all while they're away. Is that about right?
Yeah, that was some of it. But you remember, these people don't
buy his ticket for his holiday.
You remember, these people don't come and certify it until the end of the project. So it was an interesting situation. The Bureau of Meteorology said, so what happens, John, is you get your airport built, you get it certified, you write to us we'll guarantee we'll come out within 90 days. And within another 90 days, we'll give you a price, and within the following 18 months, we'll definitely put your weather station in, provided the budget allows for it. So I said, that ain't going to work for me. Well, so we put our own weather station in, but that was all through the government departments, because that's what they've been used to. They've had airports that have been upgraded, and time means nothing to them. So we said to CASA, as soon as we finish construction, that day, I want the approval. Not the next day, I want it that day, which was the 24th of October. And they sent 2 guys up and they said, we'll be here for a week. to certify. It's quite a big job, and went through all the process. And we had included them on the way through, so we had them in the tent. And these two guys came up and said, this isn't finished. We said, well, it will be by tomorrow afternoon. They said, got no chance. And we said, it'll be finished by tomorrow afternoon. Let's go and do an audit and tell us everything you're not happy with. And they had a list of things. And the one guy, the head guy, went back to his motel and said to the other bloke, I'll run down Ruffin Street naked tomorrow if these people have this airport finished. And he came back out at 4 o'clock the next afternoon. It was all done. We had about 120 people in our composite factory, and we took them all out and picking up stones and all through the night and had it done the next morning. So it can be done if you put your mind to it. And I think that's the message that we've got to get across. Thank you.
I'll now ask Gary Johns to do the vote of thanks.
Graham, the thing you do with a guest speaker is pick the right one, and we've chosen the right bloke to give this talk. Now, I've just intercepted a column which will be written tomorrow by an ABC Fairfax journalist. She doesn't know it yet. She's interpreted the work of Sir John McIlwraith. Sir John developed the sugar industry and ruined the Great Barrier Reef. He developed the dairy industry and ruined the soils of Queensland. He developed the beef industry, he dammed the rivers and ruined our rivers. He also cleared our forest to the detriment of our environment. He drove out the Aborigines. We haven't got to this bit yet, but I'm sure she'll write, he repressed women and destroyed human rights. We have, in this country, at the very height of our powers, relented. We seem to think that somehow other people should take over the national conversation. And that, thank you, and that all that we do is wrong. And we've become very good at amplifying all that we think is wrong with this country, rather than having doers, like John, show us the way about how we ought to do good deeds and feel good about it. Now, we in the Institute of Thinkers, you're the doers, we actually need each other, because out there every day with the Alan Joneses and in the Fairfaxes and the ABCs, there is a war going on that basically is against the doer, by the thinkers against the doers. And the thinkers are constantly writing little pieces to say, we're all ruined, we're all destroying Australia as it ought to be. And it simply isn't so. And it worries me that Australian children are taught every day, primary and secondary and university levels, what a shocking country this is, when it's patently not true. So John and to Liz, thank you for telling us what should be obvious, that it is a good thing to use your brain to go out and explore and build and do good things. And I'm so happy that you'll be packing up beef, putting it on planes and flying it out to China real soon. And I hope the Chinese reciprocate and will receive your goods too. Thank you. That was a wonderful lecture from a real person who's showing us the way that Australia ought to behave. Thank you, John.